question which we are going to discuss is very important, especially related to climate change, related to anthropogenic and natural causes of creation of dead zones. So it is about the dead zones in the marine ecosystem. Now, dead zones are a big cause of concern, as we'll be discussing. I'll be showing you the map also across the world, and we see that almost entire coastline of India is also part of the dead zone region. And what are the implications, what are dead zones, and everything will be discussed. So the question is that what do you understand by dead zones? What are its effects in marine ecology? So this is the about of the question. What is the question about? The question is about these dead zones. What is the first part of the question? It is to study the effects of the marine ecology. What is the second part of the question? The second part says that suggest method to check the spread of dead zone. So it is a very straightforward question in which a concept has been asked, the cause of the concept or cause of this phenomena has been asked, and then you are being asked that what can be done in order to, the mitigation method has been asked here. So for a subject like this, you should have a good in-depth knowledge. You have to understand these subjects require you to draw maps, they require you to draw diagrams, they require you to give case studies, because this is from the core area of environment and geography, right? So before understanding what is written, let us very quickly understand what are the parts of the questions that we need to cater to. First is, what are dead zone, which was the first part of the question. So we need to substantiate on this, explain in our answer in a very brief manner what exactly are dead zone. Second is, what are the causes of dead zone creation? How are dead zones created? What are the natural causes? What are the anthropogenic causes? Is climate change a big factor into this? We need to discuss that. Third thing that you have to include is case studies. If not two, at least one case study has to be included, and it is better if you include a case study in which there was already a dead zone, and then the country's efforts actually helped in revival of the dead zone. Even if the case study is not provided in the model answer, you should know that you should include this, and you should have a list of case studies. Now you can find a lot of case studies in Gazette, and especially Cosmos. For geography and environment, Cosmos, which is a weekly edition, gives you case studies which are very beautifully designed, and it will help you in your answer writing a lot. And fourth thing which you should mention is what is the effect of dead zone on the overall marine ecosystem. And the last part and the most important part is the mitigation. What can be done so that we can revive the dead zone areas? So this is what we have to cover, and we have to especially highlight what are the mitigation methods. Now let us understand how a dead zone is created. I have taken an example of Gulf of Mexico. I have taken this picture. It was given by the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the government agency of United States of America, and they have in a stepwise way have told that how a dead zone is created. So you can see Mississippi, which is the biggest river of North America, especially for USA, it is the most important river. So Mississippi River is bringing water with itself. Now what happens is that this Mississippi River carries nitrogen-rich materials such as fertilizer, urban runoff, sewage into the Gulf. As we know, even when we were studying eutrophication, we see that it is the agricultural runoff, it is the deposition by the rivers which add the nitrogenous content, and hence the algal bloom takes place, which also depletes the oxygen in the longer run. Now, second is population of microscopic organisms feed on this nitrogen supply. All right, we understand that part. Next is the organisms die and sink at the bottom. So it is the dead remains in the bottom of the oceans, or the dead remains of these animals. So now what will happen? Fish and other microorganisms, they will actually start acting on this, and because of that the oxygen consumption will be much higher, and the overall depletion of the oxygen will take place. Now, the fish and other mobile sea creatures will flee the low oxygen zone, and the organisms that cannot flee are going to die. So what is happening? Eutrophication, the way eutrophication takes place, but here the nectans, in nectans, the fast moving animals, the creatures, they are going to go to other regions where there is still ample supply of oxygen, but the slow moving organisms, for example, the octopuses, they will not be able to move and they will die. So here these crabs, as you can see, or the large fishes which are not very fast fishes, or any marine animal which is not very fast and is slower or cannot move, will die, and this will create a dead zone. Further, the microorganisms will start decomposing it, and further it will lower down the oxygen levels. All right. So this is one, you can use this exactly as a case study. Therefore, I have given you this. Apart from this, this is also the map which is given, which basically says that these are the suffocated spots on the world map. When I say suffocated spots, the ones which are marked with yellow, yellow is eutrophication. These are eutrophication. The ones which are marked with red, these are the hypoxic zones. What are hypoxic? Hypoxic are the areas where the overall concentration of oxygen is low. So, the red dots determine the hypoxic areas, and the green one are the areas which are on the path of recovery. So as you can see, in Asia, I do not see a single green zone except for this region, which is the region close to Europe. You see, the entire Asia is either red or yellow, that is eutrophication or severely hypoxic zones, where there is creation of dead zone. In India also, I see a large area which is has been turned into a dead zone due to what? Due to eutrophication. We took an example of Gulf of Mexico. You see, this region is also severely depleted. Now, for this region, even it is not just the anthropogenic activities, but it is also the natural causes which aid into the creation of dead zone. So the abnormal depletion in dissolved oxygen levels in the oceans have increased during the past 40 years. Why past 40 years? Because we we have moved to resource based consumptions. The green revolutions which took place in multiple places across the world, the excessive use of fertilizer which took place, all of that had led to creation of more than 400 dead zones throughout the globe. So, to write an answer here, now that I have understood the concept, I can start my introduction with what are dead zones. So introduction is that dead zones are low oxygen and hypoxic areas. Hypoxic are which have lower oxygen concentration in the world's oceans and large lakes. All right. These are now close to 500 dead zones covering more than 2,45,000 kilometers square globally, equivalent to the surface area of United Kingdom. So you can see that there is a huge portion of dead zones which have been created across the world. Now here you can make a table like this where you can write the causes of the formation in point wise. You do not have to go on explaining, as you have to take care of the word limit also, and the space constraint also is there. Now in the natural causes are coastal upwelling. Now coastal upwelling, if you remember your El Nino and La Nina, that concept. So with the coastal upwelling, what happens is that the nutrition is churned out, and there is more consumption by the different organisms, and whenever there will be more consumption, the overall oxygen level will deplete, because you need oxygen, you need energy for breathing, for consumption, for decomposition, everything. So coastal upwelling is the reason for that. Changes in the wind and water currents. When the wind surface, it removes the top layer and the inner nutrients, they come on the surface, and again the same phenomena takes place. And also the currents also are responsible, as they help in transportation of this nutrient. Now, climate change, of course, climate change again is very important, as we know that the ocean warming leads to excessive carbon, absorption by the oceans, and the overall depletion of oxygen in the ocean regions. So the warm waters, as you know, warm waters are a result of nothing but the excessive absorption of carbon dioxide. Now, in the anthropogenic or man-made reasons, it is the agricultural runoff, it is the direct sewage discharge in the water bodies, it is nitrogen emissions. All of this lead to eutrophication, as we have seen in the case of Gulf of Mexico. You can write a fact like this here, that according to 2019 IPCC special report on the ocean and cryosphere, in a changing climate, dead zones are projected to increase rapidly under the co-occurrence and intensification of climate threat and eutrophication. So there is a twin effect. There is already eutrophication because of the agricultural and industrial activities. Along with that, climate change, which is increasing the temperature of the ocean, this dead zone creation is going to intensify in the coming years, as it is given by IPCC. So what are the effects of dead zone on marine ecology? Remember, we have three parts. One is understanding what are dead zone and the causes associated with. Second is to understand the effect of dead zone on the ecology. And third is the mitigation methods, or how we can reduce this dead zone creation throughout the globe. So in this we can say that it is the loss of marine biodiversity, lack of oxygen in water, which leads to hypoxia and results in the death of marine species, right? As we have also studied in eutrophication, how eutrophication or excessive eutrophication can result into the death of lake. You remember that part? So you can use that knowledge here. It leads to ecological imbalance. So due to hypoxic conditions, several marine organisms tend to emigrate from one ocean zone to another. So the fishes which are able to migrate from the hypoxic region to others, they will now be competing with the organisms of that marine ecosystem, and it will again create an imbalance. वहां की फूड चेन पूरी imbalance हो जाएगी, because यहाँ का सारा जो जानवर है which can swim faster, the fast swimmers, they will now enter those oceans, those water bodies, and will compete. So that is also an issue which creates an ecological imbalance. Now, there will be increased abundance of anaerobic organism, which ultimately alters the marine ecosystem. Again, these are animals, so they will be consuming oxygen, and that again will create an imbalance. Third effect is effect on marine population. So hypoxic conditions lead to the reduction in the reproduction rates. So there will be a reduction in the reproduction, which impacts the growth of marine population. So overall growth of the marine population will also come down. So the Gulf Coast of North America. Here you have given the example. Now, also the effect on the coral reefs. So coral reefs need a very ambient condition in order to survive and prosper. So here, as corals thrive in high oxygen levels, hypoxic conditions lead to bleaching as well as coral deaths. So you also create coral deaths, coral bleaching in the area due to creation of hypoxic conditions. So example is the Caribbean Sea coast of Panama. It saw the mass mortality of corals. Now coming to the last part or last portion of the answer, which is the mitigation methods or the methods to check the spread of dead zone. You can write The first one would be controlling and regulation of agricultural runoff and sewage discharge into water bodies. Second, controlling the misuse of fertilizer in the agriculture and improving nutrient use efficiency. So you have to take care that the fertilizer is not just abundantly used, it should be effectively used. I think these are very general points you should have in your answer. Proper solid waste management and treatment. So this is very important because you cannot directly flush the sewage and solid waste into the water bodies. This will again increase the overall nutrient and increase in the microorganism, deplete in the oxygen. 2001 US EPA. EPA is the same organization of which I had shown you the Gulf of Mexico case study, highlighted the reduction in the nitrogen oxide emissions to check the spread of dead zone in Gulf Coast. Now, introduction of benthic larvae, very important. Now, this is where you make a difference. These 2 points are very common which you are going to write. But what is the different point is introduction of benthic larvae into oceanic zones impacted by hypoxia to restore biodiversity. So, in order to restore the biodiversity which is has been impacted due to hypoxia, you can introduce benthic larvae in the benthos. Benthos is the lowermost layer of the water body of the oceans. There you can introduce these larvae in order to repopulate this region. However, recent studies have shown that several features such as ocean acidification, sea level rise, changing weather patterns, etc. acts as synergy to alter the spread of dead zones. Hence, there is a need for multidisciplinary and integrated approach that considers a full range of climate variables to reverse the spread of dead zone. So here we have concluded that the acidification, sea level rise, changing weather patterns, all of them, they act together as a synergy to alter the spread of dead zones, and hence we need to have a multidisciplinary and an integrated approach for overcoming these climate variables. So this was my attempt in teaching you how to write an answer on dead zones. We'll be coming up with more such questions. Till then, study very hard and all the best for your exam. Thank you so much.